think most gamers will tell you there are people that are looking for maybe different types of experiences. So then what's available to them also has to be different and diverse.
Games, like the creativity is sort of like the upper bound there, right? So the more tech you have, you just get more stuff to work with. And the whole goal is to like automate away things that you don't want to do. And you want to be good in games. So I think it's at least good for games and entertainment.
You have to be strategic when you're thinking about the platforms you're going to build for and whether there's actually an audience there. Like for Apple Vision Pro, it's an amazing device, but are there enough users to make your game profitable? So.
My take on it's here to stay, but maybe that audience it will swell a little bit. It's not. Don't even compare it to mobile.
Wrong. But there's all these things you can do to distort the reality that you're in with the mixed reality that you can just drop people in, with the characters you create, and then the AI, and it's advancing at such a clock. It's insane.
I'm looking forward to having our first cohort later this fall, and then bring all the students to this event and other events, and also host different game jams at Duke and other universities. So if anyone is interested in getting involved on that, please reach out, and we're very happy to really have this event going in the Triangle. So thank you for organizing and inviting us.
I'm the second sponsor of this event. My company, CrossCom, is a merchant technology consultancy and app development studio located right here in downtown Durham, actually on the first floor of this building. And I've been doing this for a little more than 25 years now. During those 25 years, the definition of merchant technology has changed leaps and bounds from Netscape 1.1 to mobile apps on smartphones to augmented virtual reality and now leveraging open source large language models. So that's the kind of stuff that I do. You might be wondering why the heck then is CrossCom sponsoring this event? Well, it's because I love games. I've finally come to the point in my life, in my 40s, and my generation was sort of on the borderline generation where gaming started to actually become an acceptable thing instead of a dorky thing, right? And I finally come to the point where I'm actually at peace with my love of games. I used to think that games were for children, but now I've come to realize that games are for people who grow, of which children are some of them, and of which we all want to stay growing. And so that's why I'm sponsoring this event tonight. And so I would love to see the rest of my time over to Janie to talk about IGDA and all the good stuff about that organization.
Well, thank you, Don, for the introduction, and thank you, Ernesto, for sponsoring both of you and inviting us to co-host this event with you all. So for those of you that don't know what IGDA is, it stands for International Game Developers Association, and it's the professional organization for anyone involved in game development. So that means not just the artists or animators or programmers, but also the marketing people or attorneys or people that work in accounting. So it's anyone that's involved in the business of making games. Just a little bit about what the global organization does, because it is a global organization. There are chapters all over the world, and there are new chapters being started up all the time. Now, for our local chapter, and for most of the IGDA local chapters, you don't have to be a member to come to our events, to join our Discord, to participate in our community. Because what we are trying to do is not, oh, we want lots of members, is we want to help the community, we want to build community. We really just want to bring people together who love making games. So those are some of the memberships. So if you actually were to become a member with IGDA, they use the acronym GAMES, Global Network of Developers, access to member-only discounts, including conferences, different hardware, mentorship program. There's an amazing mentorship program where you can be both a mentor and a mentee if you would like. Everyone always has something that they can teach someone, whether you're a student just out of school or you've been in the industry for 30 years. Likewise, everyone always has something that they can learn, whether you've been in the industry for 30 years or you are a student. So the mentorship program is really amazing. They do lots of advocacy and education, and also just that international community. So we have a North Carolina Triangle Chapter. which existed a long time ago, went dormant during COVID, and I believe one of our panelists, Joe, I've heard, was one of the board members previously before COVID. During COVID, it went dormant, like a lot of things, and then after COVID, it finally started to get revamped about August of last year. Some new board members, Vivek, who I'm very excited is going to be on the panel tonight. You'll get to hear from him, as well as Jonathan, Cosma, and Armand, too. Armand is here. We try to do community events once a month. We love to partner with the other organizers in the community. So, for example, All Night invited us here to join with them on this event. TIAC, which is Triangle Interactive Arts Collective, which I saw Michael in the back sneak in. Michael's with TIAC. We've partnered with them on events before as well. You scan that QR, that's our link tree. It's not just IGDA info, it's info for all of these groups. All Night, NCXR, TIAC, the Unreal Engine group. If anyone has another group that would like to be added to that link tree, please let me know. I'm happy to add you. At the end of the day, we're just trying to be a resource for everyone to use to bring people together, because when we bring people together, great things happen. Thank you all so much for coming out, and thank you all for letting us co-host this event with you.
I love being up here on the stage and talking to you all, and there's a lot of new faces, which is wonderful. So I have a little thing I'd like to say at the beginning of our talks. First of all, that we are a community. We're a group of people who come together, all volunteers, everybody's on the board, and so we're always happy to build that community. And any contribution you can bring, anything if you ever want to demo, if you want to help organize, we have awesome guys who are helping at the door. If you want to bring in sponsorships or anything you can do, we'd love to have it. And also you can do that here, you can do it online, we have a LinkedIn group, this Discord channel. So definitely connect with us. And all are welcome. So we have a couple rules. Number one, be respectful. Number two, don't be spamming. That's pretty much all the rules. so that's it's pretty easy to join us. People sometimes for XR, they don't even know what it means. And so you have to explain to them it's augmented reality, virtual reality. And so they think that definitely developers are always welcome, but if somebody doesn't know what they're talking about, they're also welcome. Because really, if they just have an interest, everybody's welcome. So this is a meetup group specifically for people from the Triangle. However, we're proud to be a part of two large groups. So one of them is NCXR. So we have a LinkedIn group called NCXR. It's just North Carolina XR. And so all you are welcome to join. You people outside of North Carolina are welcome to join. But also the AWE nights, as we mentioned. So there are AWE nights. There's something like 33 around the world. And so this is another way to be connected to all that. And now we'll get into this really amazing panel. So I want to thank, as always, the people who make this possible. So amongst other things, the American Underground. This space is so cool, and I love being in this space, and you can just feel it, and that it's an amazing thing. And then also our sponsors. So Duke, the game development program, Ernesto, if you want to come up and join us, the first member of our panel. And then also Don from CrossCom is one of our sponsors here today. So thank you guys for sponsoring, so that we can be a part of this.
Hello, my name is Joe. I have a studio named Happy Meta, and I just released a game on the Meta store about 10 days ago called Nope Challenge. And it's doing pretty good. People are screaming, laughing, swearing. It's exactly what I wanted, and Steph is working on it as well. And I've been in game simulation training for about 27 years. I've had multiple studios. I'm in 3 studios right now, or 3 companies right now, but this one here is like my passion project. And since the game released, that is basically the snowball that I created. And the snowball is going to grow as it continues on to the other things that we're creating for the actual title itself. So establish IP, push it out, and XR is a part of that. So there's a lot of designs and stuff like that that are in my headspace in regards to what I can do into that tech. So it's a lot of fun. It's exciting.
I'm Derek, and I, as was mentioned, was at NC State, Department Head of Media Arts, Design, and Technology in the College of Design. For short, we call it MadTech. We have a great master's program and 2 undergraduate programs, but my body of work for a long time has been VR storytelling and really building immersive storytelling that kind of lives at the intersection of interactivity that you could call a form of gameplay versus a full-out narrative where you can lean back and receive parts of the narrative. Much of my work has centered around stories from underrepresented populations. A project called I Am a Man, focused on civil rights, and another project on Negro League Baseball called Barnstormers. So I've really been interested in what you feel when you're in a VR experience. So I'm like really amused by the swearing, laughing, and all that, because those are ranges of emotions. And for me, what makes a really great immersive experience is feeling some type of emotion that comes out of just being in those spaces. And last but not least, one of the hats I wear is for ACM SIGGRAPH. I was the Immersive Pavilion Chair 2 years ago, and also the Immersive Pavilion Chair for this year's SIGGRAPH conference in Denver. It's not too late to get your tickets to go out there. It's going to be a really amazing program. We just finished a jury not too long ago of all the experiences that will be in the experience hall. So.
Hey everybody, my name is Karen Stritzinger. I'm a XR developer, designer, hybrid. I kind of do a little bit of everything, and I have a background originally in animation and visual effects. And I did the Master of Fine Arts at Clemson University, if anyone here is from Clemson or has been there. Hello. Yeah, I've been since just over almost 10 years in a few days. I've been designing and developing software for immersive media, and I worked in the Bay Area at a bunch of different startups and tech companies, most recently at Meta on the Oculus system software design team, and that was a lot of fun. I got to prototype all kinds of interfaces and UI panels and home environment experiences for the Oculus Quest, and I'm sure a lot of you have played with that quite a bit. And I'm also currently working on a game at my company, Old Hara Studios, and I'll be doing some demos later if anyone's interested. The game is about environmental justice and kind of educating people about a future that's not apocalyptic and all kinds of different climate solutions that we might be able to implement in the future. So, yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Vivek. I'm a game developer. I do like machine learning engineering and stuff. In the past. So right now I'm sort of co-founding a company. We do like social games, so it's not really AR, but I did do a lot of AR back 10 years ago now, for about 8 years. So it was a company called Osmo, and we did tabletop AR for kids' education games. So yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's so great to see. So I did game dev there for a couple of years, and then I moved to computer vision, did a bunch of machine learning and stuff. That's me.
Hello again. Yes, I'm Ernesto, director of the program at Duke in Game Design Development and Innovation. I forgot to mention, and thank you, Don, there is the swag. I put it on several tables, so if you don't get a chance to talk to me, just grab. And I also brought a little bit of swag if you're wondering what they are. There's like a little square. Those are for your phone, almost like a D-pad controller, and the other one are like thumb gloves. So try to get swag very on theme. We're not going to be actually working a lot on mobile development. Mobile games as part of the program, but SWAG is very mobile game themed. And on top of the program at Duke, I also have a small studio. It's called Fanaticus XR, and as you can tell by the name, we develop XR experiences. I'm personally interested in experiences that go outside of the headset, that connect multiple people. So the first experience that we built was a flying broom simulator in VR. So it had a physical, mechanical component as well as the VR game. And then our second game was is a party game where it's an asymmetric game. You have one person in VR and then 8 other players joining the same virtual environment through their phones. So kind of getting, once again, outside of the headset, and we working right now on a couple of prototypes that take the same concepts to MR. So yeah, that's kind of what I like, kind of just thinking about a headset and expanding it a little bit outside the headset.
The first thing I want to do is just ask whoever's most interested in commenting on something that somebody else said, and adding to that.
I'll just say I find it really interesting when you say outside of the headset. I think that's a big discussion right now of like what is immersion. Like, I recently finished a project with Looking Glass with several of my students, and I'm like, some people may say, oh no, that's just depth and it's a 3D screen, whatever. Others, like, it depends upon the context in which you work with that. That could be immersion. And so I find that really interesting, kind of like even the term XR that we're gathered under. 9 years ago it was VR, AR, those two terms, and I like the richness of exploring physical things and things that come outside the headset. So I'm really interested to hopefully engage in that conversation.
I'm actually going to add to something you were talking about, Brian, which is just that it's great to see this community being built right here in the Triangle around XR specifically. I was surprised by that when I moved here, and I'm from the East Coast originally, but I've spent most of my career out in California, and just the fact that we have all of this like amazing work being done right here, and this event specifically has been such a great source for connection. So I'm just looking forward to what people are going to work on in the future and how we're going to collaborate and learn from each other.
To switch gears totally, one of the things I'm interested in, I know that some or all of you works to some degree with Meta and the things that they've done there. They recently made the announcement that they're basically going to be the, give it a name, but like the PC, the Android of the VR world, and open up to a lot of different vendors. This is interesting to me because I used to work at Lenovo, and I was trying to do so much with education, and Lenovo had our own hardware, but it was just like hard to pull it together. And now, of course, Lenovo could just leverage everything that's already in Oculus, and then they're putting it in there. So I do think that's interesting. And the initial reaction could be like, why should they let somebody else do the hardware? And it's like, are you kidding? Facebook never wanted to do the hardware. They were losing money on the hardware. So anyway, I'm curious of all your thoughts about where that's going, what that means. Did Apple force this to happen? Are we moving into this duopoly? Is Android and Samsung going to come and do something different? Sorry for the game people if this is a little too XR-y, but...
I can speak to that because I was releasing a game, and then the day of the release of the game, I read an article about them changing the story. I'm like, what's happening? So for me, I was a little bit, it was an alarm going off because there's a certain norm. I've been working with Meta for quite some time, and it's a large company. I like the idea of what they're doing. It's just like the process of it all, and everything's so new, and just opening up to the various, like the hardware and stuff, because as a developer, I am fine-tuned or just focused on the hardware of what Meta has, because that's the largest install base, and I can capitalize on that install base for like a fine piece of hardware. Now that I'm still not exactly clear, and I was ringing all their bells, I'm like, yo, give me some, what's happening here, what's going on? So I'm still getting up to speed on that, and it was a little bit, well, it wasn't a little bit, it was a big surprise, and I'm like, so now I have to rejigger, because I have a finite team, how I'm going to do things moving forward based on all this other hardware coming in, and who are the players. Because this hardware, all of its, each one has their unique aspects that you want to capitalize on, and I've been so focused on things to do with Meta's hardware, but I've been approached by Apple, I've been approached by HTC, everybody's sending me hardware now that I have a title out. But I have to be selective because it's cool, but you got like 5 people playing. So it's like you have to be very careful. So it's interesting. It's gonna be cool to see what happens. The one thing I can say, and I don't want to steal too much time away with this one, is that when it was focused and Meta was dumping so much money into the hardware, I hope that keeps going on, because you want that tech to keep rolling in. And if they say like, yeah, we're gonna stop that, that kind of slows things down possibly a little bit with this adjustment. And they have so much headspace into the XR that Quest 3 was the first like real good push for not only the XR, but for all the AI stuff that they're putting stacks of money on. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this kind of opens things up but closes things down. So it's like a two-way street. So yeah.
So recently, talked about our curriculum at NC State. We, in our junior level studios, introduced a new project which had students building a full arcade cabinet. They built the cabinet, they CNC cut out the wood, they soldered the things on the inside, they built all the buttons, and then programmed, built the game. And the great relationship about that conversation was this conversation between hardware, software, experiential game. One of the teams went as far to say, well, we're not going to do a traditional cabinet, we're going to create a new system. And the game was about a marionette. And so the screen had these curtains that pulled apart. There were lights and stuff. And again, I was so excited to see the imagination go forth, because it wasn't kind of like, here's a cabinet, build something on it. They were like, okay, how does the game influence the hardware, influence everything, and put it all together? So when you look at something that's like, okay, we're just going to be the software side of it, you all can come up not just with your ideas of applications, new types of hardware, new types of VR headsets, new types of controllers. Some of you know I had a peripheral startup company for a while called Logic Grip that was all about figuring out peripherals and new things to do with controllers. So I love the idea, because I feel for the last 5 years ago, it's been kind of stale, because everyone's been like boxed in making these products that the industry was telling us how to ship and how to make. And so I do think there's going to be so much more innovation now when people are proposing new types of headsets. Maybe this is the one that's going to be used just for arcades, or this one's going to be used in trampoline bouncy rooms and create an experience. And so I just love that idea of allowing those two parts of the industry to come together to then revigorate.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the Horizon OS that Meta recently announced, because that's such a big change for developers. Like Joe was saying, like you really have to be strategic when you're thinking about the platforms you're going to build for, and whether there's actually an audience there. Like for Apple Vision Pro, it's an amazing device, but are there enough users to make your game profitable? So it's, for now, at least, it doesn't make sense for a lot of developers to use platforms that don't have many users. And as I'm developing my own game, I'm trying to think, like, how can I make it as accessible as possible, available on as many devices as possible, and OpenXR is the way to do that for a lot of developers. So now it kind of brings up the question of, like, what is the role of OpenXR now that there's this kind of new standard developing with the Horizon OS, and how many hardware developers are actually going to support that? I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see. But in the meantime, it kind of puts developers in a place where we have to kind of just be ready for anything. It's crazy. It's exciting too, because working with OpenXR, like a lot of times you're like a year behind in the feature set that's available to you, because in order to support it, it takes time for them to build that. So it's not ideal to work with OpenXR in a lot of ways, because you can't utilize some of these really exciting features like mixed reality and all the latest things that are coming out. It's going to be a journey to kind of transition from what we're doing now to see how things get adopted. And with the announcement of Mozilla Hubs recently being shut down, that was a huge change for a lot of people who are focused on browser-based experiences, and it just shows you that even though we're like decades into the immersive media development, there's just so much change happening, and you just kind of roll with it as best as you can.
Yeah, so from what I've done at Osmo, I think I found that distribution is really everything, right? Like you just want more people to have the ability to try your products. So in that sense, I think it's great that Facebook is opening it up. I think there'll be more price points and all that. And at Osmo, we kind of were focused on iPads to start, and we stayed on iPads for a long time. And for a while, it was fine as we started growing. But once you hit that limit, once kind of everyone who can get an iPad has kids, has an Osmo, it gets very hard to scale after that. So we spent a lot of time building stuff for Android. And I think the issue we had there was, it was just like this proliferation of hardware types, right? Like there's cameras, there's screens. And since ours, we had like a little add-on to the device, we had to like support as many as we can. So I think that's the thing I'm worried about with other people manufacturing devices is like cameras are going to be different and processors are going to be different. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how Facebook navigates this. It's a problem that's been there for a long time. Right? Android's been dealing with it. I guess Microsoft Windows dealt with it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
About the kind of standardized way that all the hardware developers should be, they continue to do this formatting, so that, like, just like Windows did.
Yeah, some standardization would be great, but I think it's still diverging. We're not coming back together yet. And well, this could be a step towards that direction. And the truth is that VR and AR have been around for a very long time, and still not a lot of devices have been sold. And if we want to develop stuff for VR and XR, we need more devices. So hopefully, I think to the point that has been raised, that if this means that more people will enter the field and there will be more options, I think that's great. But also if it means that Meta will stop subsidizing their devices, that's also not that great, because they're the most prevalent platform right now. So I think a lot of the things have been covered. Related to that, another announcement that they made is they had they're kind of sunsetting their app lab, and they're just moving into a single store, which I think is something also very exciting for XR developers. In the past, you had to had the existing relationships with Meta, and then only a handful of games would make it to the actual store. You can still go to the app lab, people can still buy your game, but it wasn't visible, basically, almost like an unlisted video on YouTube. So they're making some changes, which also opens up the doors for new developers. I think they'll be worried about like the quality of stuff, and I don't know what are the new parameters that they'll put, the new thresholds. But it is, I think, a good move, because you had like a relatively small install base hardware, and then then you had just a few games going to the Meta store. So now you can have more variety, more users seeing more games, which I think we need to see more diversity in the type of experiences that are available to users, because I don't think that people that buy virtual reality headsets are necessarily heavy gamers. I think most gamers will tell you there are people that are looking for maybe different types of experiences. So then what's available to them also has to be different and diverse. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
Can I mention something about the ecosystem of how content is delivered? I've been bothered for some time now about the shelf life of them canceling it. I mean, we can all probably go around the room and talk about amazing games that they don't exist anymore for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's a change of hardware. Sometimes it's the contracts of the IP they're using. One example for me was the Marvel game. Did anyone ever play that for a window? They were even selling Oculuses with like the box of being any Marvel character. And it was a good run for a while. You could be Wolverine and all these players. And so here I am like watching on Disney X-Men 97 or 97, and I'm like, oh, it's great. No, wait a second, that game doesn't exist to throw my kids in to have fun and continue. So there's something weird about not being able to keep something and hold it and go back and play. It doesn't matter if the quality was bad then. It's like, it's a piece of history to go back and play early games. And so I'm slightly troubled that we have these accepted the terms that these things have shelf lives and they're just gone and they're gone forever. And I think that's going to be a challenge. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll have the emulator in the future to and where you can play old, Genesis and Nintendo games now on like a little drive. We'll have like a headset. It's like play everything that came out in 2015.
So I just want to comment on some of the other comments. The install base is actually quite large. There's tens of millions as far as for the Quest 2, which is still the majority. If you would actually do even like a keyword search, or like Steph and I do that for things for in social, you'll see that Quest 2 is the majority of people that gets the most likes and whatnot. Quest 3 is growing. Quest 3 has that mixed reality capability that's so much more of the tech, which is great. So you have this huge pool of people that are still buying, and also the demographic is between the, say, 28 to 40 some odd years. And games are the driving force. They're the ones that get the most attention, the most purchases. They're the ones you're trying to go after. And that demographic is becoming more and more hardcore, more and more experience, and also the people that are in VR or XR, what have you, they like the intensity of it. They're really intense as far as like what they like as far as their appetite's concerned. But there's still a huge pool of people that have never done it before. There's this large portion of people, large part of the population, because there's the PS5, there's the Xbox, and then all these consoles, the Nintendo Switch. All those have many millions of install base that you can actually go and develop for each one. But I will develop for a Quest. I might not right now develop for a PS5 because the install base is small, the sales aren't great, and then it is actually a substantial amount of people, which is why when they do change things up at their store and stuff like that, I get concerned. But it is change that's needed, and it's going to be interesting to see things that are happening. I'm just like shocked when it happens because I've been told. But there's a lot of things that are going positive in the direction for the VR, for the mixed reality, that is really based upon what Meta has done and what Apple's trying to do, and what have all these companies done. And Meta has been one of the biggest like truckload mountain, building size amounts of funding, and to just keep going. So with them opening it up a little bit more, I'm like, okay, let's see what this does. So it's quite interesting as far as like the pools that are out there.
And what I'm interested in is the convergence of technologies. So we talk about XR, we talk about AI, we talk about Internet of Things, we talk about all the different things that are spinning. And it just seems like there is this kind of inevitable convergence. And some people will pick a term, a lot of people picked metaverse for that, and then it's like an embarrassing term in retrospect, and people are walking away from it. But I do think there's something to that convergence of sort of inevitable convergence of technologies. And I'm kind of interested in your thoughts on those things, and then maybe different flavors, like ones that are non-obvious that you're seeing.
Yeah, I can talk about this for an hour to start. So I'm really big in the AI space, and the AI is like, I've been interested in for quite some time, and it's really like the hot topic. It's something that's like you're saying, the convergence. One of the things that is most interesting to me as like a game designer is, you have the Oculus Rift, you have the Quest, you have the Vive. None of those have the technology of AI like the Quest 3 to the next, the Apple Vision Pro. That is an amazing technology to actually marry that with any kind of like experience you're going to have with augmented reality, with mixed reality, with virtual reality. I mean, just the things that Meta's been investing in. They have the technology like segmented reality, or the segmented AI. And to me, as a designer, I'm thinking like, if you would think about it, I didn't have the capability before of an AI that knows the space that you're in and can detect what it is. Now I can say, like in my game, there are murderous clowns. There are actually robotic murderous clowns, and they're AI driven, like old school AI. So some of the designs I'm thinking of is this clown that's going to chase you around your house. Well, you have to scan your house. Well, this technology can detect what part of the house you're in because it knows sink equals kitchen, bread equals kitchen, and all that. I'm in the kitchen. Okay. Well, then as it's scanning to get the topographical information and stuff to do for the actual occlusion and everything like the magic that you want to have in the game, well, I'm going to have this clown run around. I'm like, what can I have him do? Well, because of the tech that Meta has developed, it now can actually detect, there's like, say, a soda can. It's on the counter. Well, that soda can it can make what's another popular term is digital twin. So all of a sudden you have a digital twin of that soda can, but you're immersed, and you don't know it's a digital twin. Well, now that clown can pick that can up and throw it at you. And you're like, and that's the immersion factor. Like, whoa, that clown just picked up a can in my holy, and then you're in it. And the other thing is too, now it detects as far as like there's a wall behind you and have all the audio and all that immersion factor is just amps up. It knows like this AI being that you created can actually go and use that environment and then go into the garage. Well, it knows that there's things in the garage that it can use. There's things that you can actually utilize with that mixed reality space, with that AI paired with it, that it gives you tools that are incredible as far as like the designs. And that's the stuff that it's going to gradually show itself with people that are taking these two things that are coming together. And it's insane. Like just there's designs I've been doing with being in the conversation. That's really a popular thing now. Talking to a clown and it talks back to you. It's just like, and a conversation. That's really popular with NPCs and stuff like that. But there's all these things you can do to distort the reality that you're in with the mixed reality that you can just drop people in, with the characters you create, and then the AI, and it's advancing at such a clock, it's insane. And having that happen now, while mixed reality is starting to take off, the Quest 3, Apple Vision Pro, these companies are not stupid, and they've been doing this for a long time, and they're willing to take these risks and have these fails. It's incredible to see all this money being spent into this tech because they know where it's at. So I'm excited about it, and I think this convergence it's just a beautiful thing. It's scary, yeah, but it's if you embrace it and just play with it, it's going to be freaking incredible. So that's what I'm doing with designs now, and that's so fun.
Yeah, I'll share my enjoyment of what it's doing for creatives in the creative process. Someone mentioned like, oh, am I scared it's going to take jobs away? I deal with students all the time who come to me freaked out because they read some article that AI can build a 3D model or can do texturing or can do rigging. And I'm like, yeah, that's automation. It's going to happen, those things. But what I always tell them and remind them is there's always something new on the horizon. There's always a new form of entertainment that we haven't seen yet, a new experience. Running away from scary clowns in my house. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, but that's a new form of entertainment. I'm like, I can see how that's really entertaining to like create. And so I think with the scariness of things becoming automated and taking away some of the classic positions, we train students, and I think this all the time, of now that we have these things, to our tool belt, what's next? And so I think some of the things like I've seen presented for this year's University Pavilion of CGRAPH, for instance, some amazing projects that are like, that's the seed of the next. Like that's gonna be the thing that leads to people spending hours in an event doing those things that are other. So if you're focusing on the typical things that we play now, first-person shooters or just 360 videos and storytelling, that type of stuff, like, yeah, that's going to be really simple. But then what do you do now that you have these things? And I love your example. And that's why I would say that's the promise of a new disruptive tool set. The promise that given time will create new products and new services.
AI is just like such a big topic that we could talk about it for hours, but something that I think about a lot is the conversation about like what does an ethical use of AI look like. I think that has kind of been lagging way behind the development, and that's what concerns me. I want to see more people talking about that and imagining what should we be doing, and how would we structure this ideally? Would it be open AI and that the whole situation that happened was in the news, gosh, was it over 6 months ago now? With Sam Altman leaving and then coming back, and it just brings up all these questions of should this be a publicly owned entity, and who has say over the decisions that are being made, and how do these large corporations relate to that and influence it, and how can people collectively work together to have ownership over the technology that as it evolves, so that we are in control of the development and kind of the ethical decisions that are being made for a lot of people who are going to be affected by it, but they don't have any role in creating the technology. I think it's important for there to be more of like a community involvement process. So I think about things like worker-owned cooperatives. How can they play a role in that? What would it look like for a co-op to build AI instead of like Microsoft? You know, how does that change the dynamics and the kind of relationships of the power that an individual person has versus the whole industry? And yeah, I think the other big concern that I have is there's so much optimism in the tech industry. Like, all of us are optimists because we kind of have to be to just deal with all the crazy things that happen. But I think people don't have a solid enough understanding of what AI is and how it works. With things like Midjourney, people don't actually understand what Midjourney is doing. There's all these kind of philosophical discussions about what an artist does versus what a computer does, and it kind of distracts from just basic ethical questions of, like, you know, these artists didn't give permission for their work to be provided as data. So whether or not it's different from an artist or not is kind of irrelevant. And I think there's a lot of kind of weird conversations happening where people get very focused on kind of these analogies that they're making, but they kind of lose sight of the deeper issues and just basic human rights conversations, I think.
That's a good question about AI. But yeah, just to go back to what you were asking about, like, so this convergence of like different technologies all trying to hit that same goal of like, we need to get computers out of the screens and just into our worlds, right? And I think AI is obviously like a big part of that. And there's IoT and stuff. So I think it's interesting just as a phenomenon where it's very clear that's the goal, right? Like we know that, say, I don't know, 30 years from now, everyone will have computers that are more in their real world. The question is how do we get there, right? And I think, yeah, with IoT, it was like a hardware sort of approach. With VR, I think, and especially now that AI is here, I think just with cameras we're able to do a lot, and that's kind of what we saw at Osmo was you don't need like electronics and stuff to be able to like detect the pieces on the table. You can just do it with a camera. And I think, like you were saying, what Meta's doing now with just a bunch of cameras, you can basically sort of like the machine can sort of see as much as a human can. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if that is the right approach, you know, to get us to a fully real computer. I mean, like, computer in the real world. But yeah, I think it's just nice to see different approaches anyway.
Yeah, to move a little bit maybe from AI, I'm also optimistic and kind of excited about AI, but I think there's so many additional technologies that are being developed that, you know, just a few years ago, to do anything with motion tracking, you had to get very expensive, like tens of thousands of dollars, or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then you kind of have the just like inertia-based suits that now you can buy for, you know, $6,000, and now you can do stuff just with a couple iPhones and software, right? So kind of for motion tracking and photogrammetry, like, it's getting so much better to kind of capture environments. So on top of AI, there's a lot of other stuff for motion capture as well, for new treadmills systems, or new haptic vests for chest or for touching stuff, and all of the technology is being developed at the same time. So, and I think there's progress in all of them, and in many cases it's also getting cheaper, which is something that makes me excited, both as a developer for them, but also for consumers, because then it increases the type of experiences that they can have. So absolutely in agreement with the advances that we'll have with AI to create very unique and customizable experiences, but also bringing the points, the broader scope that is this multiple technologies that are going to enable better gaming and XR experiences.
Yeah, I want to add one thing about the AI taking jobs away. I think actually that games are probably like the best place to be if things are getting automated, right? Because games like the creativity is sort of like the upper bound there, right? So the more tech you have, you just get more stuff to work with, and the whole goal is to like automate away things that you don't want to do, and you want to be building games. So I think it's at least good for games and entertainment.
So a lot of things that people have with like the fear of AI. There's a lot of things that I've talked to many people that are just like, oh, if you're using anything that's ChatGPT or Midjourney or any of the tools that are out there, I totally understand why it's scary and why there's questions as far as the ethics, like all that. I completely understand. I do also have concerns about that. But my brother and I were talking about this the other night because he's really into the whole AI, and we were speaking to it because somebody kind of talked down to me because I was using ChatGPT for doing scripts, and that's an understandable confusion about it, or just resentment, or just there's certain ways that people look at when people are using it. And we were talking about it, and one of the examples that we talked about, though, because we're doing so much things in tech, is there was that group of women at NASA that were the movie Hidden Figures, and they were mathematicians. They were amazing. And when it was the story that was that all of a sudden the computers with the punch cards came in, and they were getting kicked out. The whole team, they're all gone. These mathematicians. Well, one of the women said, I'm going to learn to do what that thing does. That's a new piece of technology. I'm going to learn that thing up and down. I'm going to know what that is because nobody else knew. Everybody's like, this new tech, I don't know. She knew that you get on top of that and you know as much as possible what that tool can do for you. So they got these machines in, they're all gone, and they're like, who's going to run it? And she's like, I know how to run it. They're like, well, none of us do. And she just knocked it out of the park. And they're like, well, we want you to come back. And she's like, we're going to bring my team back. And we're all going to learn, and we're all going to know those tools. And they knew that with the technology, you have to be on top of it. It's scary, it replaces jobs, all that stuff, it advances. But you have to have the smarts, especially if everybody here is interested in the mixed reality and the virtual reality and all this tech and riding that wave. It's just know those tools as much as possible because they can provide so much with what you're doing. And some of it's going to be a little bit squirrely as far as where it goes, but just jump into it and get to know as much as possible because it can help you so much with what you're trying to do. I just want to.
But I would like to have questions from the audience.
Okay, a quick question from the panel. I'm a little bit outsider from the game industry, and my question is the following. I'm from a time before mobile phones, and I observed the turning point where Nokia was very pervasive, but we didn't have games, and then after Apple launched the iPhone, it became a huge platform for games on mobile devices. So my question is, have we reached the turning point for games in AR, VR, and MR because we already have the device that makes the change, or not yet?
So, at least with AR, I think the answer is no, because with the exception of Pokemon Go, which is always brought up, and the only reason it's always brought up because it's the only AR game that has really been successful, and most people can do AR on their phones right now, and AR there's not really AR gaming, so I think we have to keep creating, as designers and developers, compelling games that attract people, but I think from a hardware point of view, at least in AR, it doesn't seem to be the case. For VR, I think the install base is in the tens of millions, but I think compared to consoles or just desktop gaming, we're very, very far behind there in the billions, right? So I think there's still a lot more that we can go, but I think there is enough of an ecosystem and enough of a user base where you can have companies be successful and companies be sustainable. I don't know what would it take to have mass adoption. I don't know if the price point is the only thing. Probably not. I think at one point, I think that Meta brought the prices up again of their headsets, but at one point you can buy one for $300. That seemed to me like a very reasonable price, but we're still kind of waiting for more adoption. So I think, hopefully I answered your question.
Reasons. And so when you compare it to mobile, no, it's not going to compete to that level. Now, do you grow that base from 28 and 40 and accept it for what it is? I think they do that. So at the end of the day, what is VR? It's a professional sport, but it's the hockey. It's not NFL, NBA. It's not even in baseball. But hockey's here to stay. So it's a player, but that's like saying, will hockey ever be as big as the NFL? No. No. So, but is it going anywhere? No. So that's just my take on it. It's here to stay, but maybe that audience, it will swell a little bit, go a little bit, but it's not, don't even compare it to mobile.
Wrong. It's new tech, and there's challenges with all these companies, and like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of changes that are happening. Meta's trying to go for all the demographics. It just happens to be what the economics of it all, that it is that demographic that is willing to jump into it, or they can afford it, or whatever it may be, but they're trying to get everybody and anybody. But the challenges that they have is they can't get the AAA developers to actually put money into it because it's new technology. They don't have the resources that actually understand how to build for the VR or the mixed reality. But it is growing. And as far as your question, as far as mixed reality, it's starting with the Quest 3. The Quest 3 actually, with the pass-through camera and the mixed reality component that it has, the hardware is way ahead of the software. So it's basically when Apple put out their phone, they didn't open their store up. So they have this install base of all these phones. As soon as they opened that store up, people started making apps. They started figuring it out. And the mixed reality, as far as that component, that's all new. The developers don't know how to develop for it. There's not really the funding. People don't understand it, but you get those little tidbits like a Beat Saber or something like that that makes the bank, or the actual Pokemon Go. Like those are the ones that signal, yep, money. And where the money's at, when people are interested, and there's some game mechanic that somebody creates, that is something that people will replicate first off, and then they'll start coming up from those replications their own designs that either go from that or something completely unique. But everything's so brand new, and everything's just like coming along. And the Quest headset, like that, the Quest 2 is the one that is like the powerhouse with the install base. The Quest 3 is now going to be the one where it drops from $500 to $400 to $300, and then a new Quest headset comes out. So they depreciate as far as the other ones, and then it just keeps going along. So it is growing. The install base is growing, and the number one demographic that's growing is 10-year-olds and up. And that install base, they're growing up with it. And they are just basically going to explode because Meta dropped it down to 10 from 13. And the kids, as far as being able to move around and just explore, they're just like, this is the real thing. This is the normal thing, just like an Xbox. But it's a Quest headset or whatever headset. So that's growing. And if you look at it as far as like 1, 2, 3 years, yeah, it looks like it's not going anywhere. If you look at 5, 10 years, holy crap, it's exploding. So it's new. It takes time to adjust, but I think it will.
But to mobile, he compared it to mobile.
Yeah, well, mobile as far as was established for a pretty long while. The tech behind the VR and stuff like that, mobile is something that people use as a communication device for everything. That's what Apple's trying to do with the Apple Vision Pro. They're trying to make it like that next device that everybody uses all the time. So is Meta as far as like with their whole push for the enterprise sector. But as far as gaming and stuff like that is concerned, there's still just a lot of fail that's happening before like the success that it continues. There's a lot of success.
But if it's going to reach to the demographic that you're suggesting it's going to, it's not going to be worn or look the way it is today. Because some of the factors that you haven't addressed is, you mentioned AAA, you mentioned all these things. I'm like, no, there's the wearability of it, there's how it sits on the face, these are certain barriers. There's certain populations will say, I'm not putting that on.
Yeah.
And so if it is going to grow, it's going to be worn and feel different. And if that's the solution, then it's like, well, yeah, I'm a believer.
First of all, thank you guys so much, and ladies. So thanks to all for coming.